What do you know about the true intentions of the United Nations and who's behind it?
The answer is very simple. It's one world government, and the same families that we always discussed before. Governments have no power. Governments are being controlled by the shadow government.
What about
As an outsider, that's the reason that they don't want him in the White House. That's the reason they're trying to kill him all the time. But leaders die all the time. If you don't play ball, they get rid of you.
By 2030, X, Y, and Z are going to happen, which would mean that things are technically only getting worse.
Right now, they have the upper hand. They're succeeding in most things that they want to do.
You consistently say mid-25, end of 25, things will get a whole lot better. Why are you saying that? What do you know?
Something is about to happen.
In what way? Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Ray. Today, we're going to be speaking about the United Nations. We're going to be speaking about the Pentagon. We're going to be speaking about Agenda 2030 with everything that Ray knows and everything that he's willing to share with us today. Ray, first and foremost, I want to say thank you for being here today.
Nice to be back again.
Absolutely. So we'll just dive right in as usual. Let's talk about the United Nations first. What do you know about the United Nations? Have you ever been to the UN?
Yes.
Can you share your experience?
As a private citizen, I visited like everybody else did. As a TLS agent, I spent a lot of time in the basement of the UN.
Why the basement?
Everything's in the basement.
What do you mean?
The brain of the operation is in the basement. The TVs, the computers, everything is there. Everything is being watched from the basement and controlled from the basement.
That makes sense. That's like most places with security, but what's so special? Why are you highlighting the basement specifically?
Because this is where I was.
What were you doing there?
I was targeting certain individuals that were in the UN. Politicians.
Targeting them for what reason?
To influence them to do certain things.
And how are you able to do that from the basement?
Well, from the basement, I had the opportunity to study them.
Who let you there?
My boss.
How did she get access?
I don't know, but we went in. Security was there. They didn't ask any questions. They recognized her. They opened the door for her. She told them, "He's with me." And I just walked in and followed orders.
Who do they think she is?
I don't know, but they don't know who she really is. Everybody has a cover, but she has connections in very high places. She's walking into many secure places, unannounced.
I have more questions about the UN, but before then, let's go to the Pentagon for a second. Have you ever been at the Pentagon?
Yes.
For what reason?
I don't think we want to talk about it.
I want to talk about it.
I know, but on camera, I don't think you want to do it.
Why not?
People like the CIA don't like you already. They're really not going to like you after they hear what I have to say. So, you don't want me to say it.
I do. That's why I do this work.
I can't. I have to protect you.
Can you give us a big picture? Why were you in the Pentagon? What were you doing there?
I'll be vague and share as much as I can. I needed to meet certain people in order to achieve certain targets.
And you go looking as your normal self?
Sometimes, not always.
So when you look like somebody else, what is it, a mask? How does it work?
If they choose to dress me as somebody else, yes, they give me a mask, they give me a costume, they give me certain clothes, depending where I'm going.
And the times where you go as yourself, they have facial recognition. They can understand who you are very quickly.
First of all, when I go as myself, I don't go with my real name. I go with my TLS name.
But still, with facial recognition, they could bring it up through networks and understand exactly who you are.
They can't.
How are you so sure?
TLS has something to interfere with their cameras.
Can you give me a big picture example of why you would be needed in the Pentagon? What types of officials you would be dealing with?
You're asking too many details. Same reason I went to the UN. I needed to influence certain people, so I went in to study them. And if I have to do something physical, they're giving me access to them, where I can either shake their hand, or maybe just put my hand on their body in order to do certain things to them.
You're not really giving me much to work with here.
Well, I can't give you too many details. You have to understand, it's very sensitive. But for example, if the purpose is to change someone's mind regarding a specific political issue, again, TLS cannot change destinies. But they can manipulate, when necessary, certain people or certain issues to make them do things that they otherwise wouldn't do unless we're going to do X, Y, or Z.
And that's why you're sent in?
Yes.
Why touch the person?
In order for me to scan you, manipulate you, or give or take certain energies from your body. I need to touch you.
Have you ever had experiences like that with other officials or individuals in the government outside of the United States?
Yes.
Can you give me names?
No.
Can you give me countries?
No.
Can you give me areas, regions?
Middle East.
Recently?
The past year.
What was the intention?
To influence somebody in high places to achieve certain targets. Which failed, by the way.
And when you go to these places and you're sitting in these rooms, do they know who you are?
No. I get a title.
Are you with presidents or prime ministers of other countries?
I'm with the high-level people.
Have you ever spent time with the double of a president or a prime minister?
Yes.
How did you know that it was a double?
Well, I was told in advance what to expect, because I needed to be aware of what's about to happen and what my job is. And so, I knew it coming in.
And does the double know who you are? Or is the double really a double of the president or the prime minister, and you're working kind of in secret even to him?
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
So if they do, does the double know what TLS is?
No.
Has TLS ever created doubles for prime ministers or presidents to sit at meetings at a table?
TLS is using doubles all the time. I don't know specifically if they did it for higher level politicians. I know they do within the group, which means if I need to do certain things, they can create a double for myself so I could do what I want to do without my people, my family, my children, knowing what's going on.
Let's go back to the United Nations.
Mm-hmm.
You spent time there, you've seen things there, you've done things there, you were on operations there. You're obviously not going to give too much details about that, so let's speak about what you do know and what you can share. When it comes to the UN, I think most people at this point understand, if not most, at least my viewers, understand that the UN is a front for something else other than what they say their intention and their mission is to do. Because they play this game of, we're here to bring the world together and be one and, stop wars and so on and so forth. Obviously, there's a lot of corruption. What do you know about the true intentions of the United Nations and who's behind it, beyond governments? Who's behind it in terms of these big families and elites, if any individuals are?
The answer is very simple. It's one world government. And the same families that we always discussed before. It's the same people.
What do? They fund it? How does it work?
They fund it. They control it. Governments have no power. Governments are being controlled by the shadow government, which are the families, which I'm not going to mention names. We all know who we're talking about here.
And what is their correlation to the UN? How do they use the United Nations to take control or to take over?
The end game is one world government. They want to use the UN to achieve it. But in the meantime, take for example, what happened with COVID. Just recently, almost the entire world, signed an agreement to basically give the medical jurisdiction of the world, including the US, including Israel, including many other countries in Europe. I think everybody signed it except 4 countries, in order to give the jurisdiction to Dr. Tedros in the UN. That means that he will decide if there is a pandemic. He will decide if you're wearing a mask. He will decide if you're sick or not. He will decide what medicine you're going to take, and he will decide if you're going to fly or not. And they created a digital passport that they're going to bring out soon in the case of a pandemic. They're saying, in case of a pandemic, we are ready, and there's going to be a new passport.
Would you say that they're using the United Nations to centralize power in a negative way?
Absolutely.
Now, there is Agenda 21, which I guess is already passed, and there's Agenda 2030. What's the difference between each?
Agenda 21 was to trigger the process that's going to supposedly end in 2030. But you don't have to search much. You can go into the records of the UN. Agenda 2030 and Agenda 21 was written in advance. You could read about it. Everything they discussed happened.
Why do they write about it if they're trying to do harm through it?
I guess it's the arrogance of their power. I really don't know. They should keep it quiet. But no, they openly discuss it, because as I said before, people are dumb.
But why share it?
I agree with you. I would keep it quiet if I wanted to do something that evil.
To your understanding, what is Agenda 2030?
It's bringing the world, supposedly, to a better place. For example, Mr. Schwab said, you're going to own nothing, and you're going to be happy. There will be no governments. There will be one controlling government. You will own nothing. You will have no assets. You will have no money. There will be a cashless society, digital, where they control your wallet digitally. If you piss somebody off, they'll take your money away. Very simple.
This is where digital currency comes in.
Correct. Which they're doing as we speak.
Do you believe that they'll succeed?
So far, they're doing very well, I have to admit. But I'm hoping, and I believe, that they will not.
Do you know any leaders in the United Nations that are countries with leaders in the United Nations that have opposed what the UN wanted and faced consequences because of it?
Yes, many.
I think the president of Haiti was one of them.
One of them. Then there is a president of... It was an African nation. I forgot the name. He died a very short time after. I think he died of a heart attack. But leaders die all the time. If you don't play ball, they get rid of you.
What about Trump?
Trump is an outsider. That's the reason that they don't want him in the White House. I think he, himself, was surprised when he became president. I don't think he's one of them. But I don't think that he's strong enough to fight them either. I hope I'm wrong, because I don't see anybody else coming and doing the right thing soon.
Back to Agenda 2030. It's crazy that they have these plans and they publish them. The real question is, what do you believe that we can do about it, if there is anything that we can do about it, to stop something like that from coming to fruition? And you consistently say mid-25, end of 25, things will get a whole lot better. That contradicts what their plans are for 2030, because they're telling you by 2030, X, Y, and Z are going to happen, which would mean that things are technically only getting worse.
Well, right now they have the upper hand. They're doing good. They're succeeding in most things that they want to do. I strongly believe that, in the end, the divine power will not let it happen.
What makes you think that things are going to get better in 2025? Why are you saying that? What do you know?
Certain discussions I had with certain people with TLS and outside of TLS that make me feel that something is about to happen.
In what way?